Hey, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well on this beautiful day or beautiful night as it's the end of the day. I wanted to make a video on an article that came out earlier this month in January that caused a lot of kind of flurry and made a lot of people worried about their risk for developing dementia. It got national news. I'm looking at NBC News right now, and I wanted to bring up that article about the risk for developing dementia is much higher than previously thought. And, one of the things that I have learned in my 40 years of being on this earth is that you can almost say anything in an article if you something like could this could happen if this happens, or something along those lines. You're pretty much allowed to say anything you want when the article has the word could in it. And this is unfortunately not necessarily the exact case when it comes to this article, but when it comes to studies, you really kind of dig deep and read the article to find out if the headline is really matching what the study is reporting. And I think that's kind of the case in this situation. This came out middle of January, about a week ago, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and it says dementia risk may be twice as high as Americans live longer. Study finds older studies estimated a lower risk for dementia. According to a new research, the number of people living with the disease in the U.S. is expected to double by 2060. So certainly makes some sense, right? And this article goes on to say the risk of developing dementia may be higher than previously thought. A study published Monday in the Journal of Nature Medicine has found older studies estimated that 14% of men and 23% of women would develop dementia in their lifetimes. The new study puts that estimate higher at 42% for both men and women. So that is kind of like the clickbait that this article got, that oh my gosh, we're now 42% estimated higher chance that we could have dementia. Certainly studies are needed. You need a lot of studies. Then you need meta studies, right, which is a study of all the studies, and to really find what the cause is. Now it goes on to say that this is going to be really important. More than anything, the increase in both risk and the number of people living with dementia, which the research is estimated will double by 2060, is the result of people living longer than previous generations. That makes sense, right? The longer you live, the greater the chance you're going to have chronic diseases that catch up with you, whether it's CHF, whether it's COPD, whether it's cancers, stroke, dementia, whatever it might be. Just the fact that the population is going to get older will mean the number of dementia cases will double overall. All right, fine. I can certainly live with that. About 10% of Americans over the age of 65 have been diagnosed with dementia. Nearly 7 million people in the US have Alzheimer's, the most common type of dementia. I'm sure that number is very low. I'm sure that's much higher than what they realize with 10% of Americans have dementia. I assume that's higher just because a lot of dementia just doesn't get ever diagnosed. The study included more than 15,000 people, so a decent amount of people who were tracked for more than 2 decades. About one quarter of participants were Black and more than half were women, two groups known to have elevated risk. So this is kind of where the next one is where, all right, the house isn't on fire scenario. According to the study, the average 55-year-old risk for dementia during their lifetime is 42%. Okay, that's a lot, but the risk was not the same with every age. The brunt of it occurred after the person's 85th birthday. The average lifespan in the United States is 77 years. For most people, a little higher for women, a little lower for men. Between the ages of 55 and 75, the person's risk for developing dementia was 4%. So obviously for that 4% that has dementia, that's devastating, but it also means that you got a 96% chance that you're not going to develop dementia before you're 75 years old. By the time somebody turns 85, the risk was about 20%, so certainly increases. And then finally, the risk didn't reach 42% until a person's 95th birthday. So if you live to 95 years old, which the vast majority of people that are watching this video are not going to live till 95 years old unless we have some massive breakthrough in healthcare and technology that allows us to live 20 years, 15, 20, 25 years longer than most of us live. The there's still a what great chance, a 58% chance that you're not going to develop dementia. And so it goes through to say that certainly for we, which is well known that Black Americans, women are at a higher risk. So I just thought it was kind of important to point that out, that a lot of people, a lot of articles, a lot of things online have said, oh my gosh, 42% of people are going to have dementia and it's going to double by 2060. Well, 42% of people are going to have dementia if they live to 95 years of age. And um, that's a long life to live, right? And there's a lot of things that could get you well before you hit 95. One of the other articles I wanted to quickly bounce over to, which I had highlighted, was minimizing the risk of dementia, right? So, to no surprise of anybody, that maintaining a healthy diet and getting proper rest are essential for minimizing the risk for dementia. You can minimize your risk for dementia by eating healthy, more fruits and grains and vegetables, and less animal fats and sweets in moderation. You need to make sure you're going to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep every single night. Now, there is going to be some wild debate about diet. Obviously, that's a huge thing going on in this country right now. Some people swear by carnivore, some people swear by uh, being vegan, some people swear about by being vegetarian. Whatever it is, at the end of the day, it's going to be about your BMI, your how obese you are or you are not. So the more weight you're carrying, the more inflammation you have, and that typically leads to more chronic diseases. That's the big thing that they're talking about with diet. Thinner you are, the healthier you are, the less likely you're going to have problems with any of the major kind of causes of death once you're over 40 years of age and you're not a smoker. Those are obviously cancer, dementia, stroke, CHF, COPD. Those are the things that you really need to worry about when it comes to chronic diseases and trying to avoid those. Which I always looked at as kind of a good thing. Like, I only need to worry about five things once now that I'm 40 years old and I'm not a smoker. I need to worry about doing these five things, and all five things can be greatly reduced if you are in shape and healthy and living a clean-ish, we'll say, lifestyle. I mean, everything in moderation, including moderation itself. Am I right? So the other thing that was important about this is talking about sleep deprivation. In someone's midlife years, their 20s through their 50s, can raise the risk of dementia in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. This is chronic disease 101, right? You're 30 years between 20 and 50 years old, or 30 years or 40 years, excuse me, between 20 and 60 years old are going to set you up for how your 60s go, your 70s, and your 80s go, right? You can't just magically undo in a week or two years of bad habits, right? It's one of those things that we as humans have a real struggle with. Uh, Denying short-term pleasures for long-term gains. We're not great at doing that, right? The ribeye steak with the buttery mashed potatoes and the beer is going to taste good really is going to taste really good right now, and we'll worry about tomorrow or 20 years from now, and then all of a sudden, as we all know, in the blink of an eye, you're 40 years old when you feel like you were just 20 years old yesterday. And what it talks about is the brain is essentially clears out toxins that are developed throughout the day. And then these toxins build up, they develop into plaques, and those are the kind of plaques that we see in people's with Alzheimer's. These are the things that are going to cause you to have a higher risk of having Alzheimer's. Exercise is a big one, and that's something that we're actually pretty good at until we get older. When we get kind of lazy, but physical activity is my best anti-aging formula. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm not here to go get on a soapbox about how you need to lose weight. I'm not perfect, God knows that, but we all kind of know what the issues are here, right? And dementia is more and more looking like a chronic disease, much like the other chronic diseases that we have in this country that are from years of some type of neglect, whether it's eating poorly, whether it's not exercising. And what this is saying in this article is it is on not getting enough sleep. And a lot of us don't get sleep. And I'll just say that um, I don't think Mother Nature made that big of a mistake, right? There's a reason we need to sleep 7, 8 hours a night. And it looks like part of that reason, even though we don't know a lot about sleep, part of that reason is to clear the brain of toxins and these plaques that can develop and then cause Alzheimer's and dementia. So that was an article I read a couple weeks ago, and then I read the whole thing. And I said, wow, some of the things that are being said about this article aren't necessarily accurate to what the article is saying. So I wanted to make a kind of reaction video on that, give you my thoughts. But at the end of the day, nothing's really changed. It's being healthy, getting exercise, and getting your 8 hours of sleep every night, and you're putting yourself in a good position to avoid the hospital, to avoid needing some type of care. And all of us can certainly do better in that position, right? So that is an article that I thought was worthwhile sharing with you all. I appreciate it. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'll catch you on the next one.